Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our native ancestors' stories and history alive while also sharing with you our native cultures, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And stay tuned for the end of each episode where we'll talk about some great ways to support Native causes and or Native-owned businesses. Let's get started. You're listening to part 2 of this series. Enjoy.
So, and you'll see this here, like with the different song cycles, like we just saw bird songs. So this is Hasa, Chio. So, but if you were to say it in English, someone might say Hasa ti Chio ha, right? But I know this is in my language because there's an H over the A. Anytime we have an H in front of a word or a subject, they're talking about that subject. So you can drop off the H and it becomes a sha, which means bird in my language. But if you were to ask anyone out there right now, what does hasa mean? They'd be like, I don't know. Because they were never taught that you add an H in my dialect when it's the subject of the sentence.
Whoa. Okay.
Right. So that's the next level that we're going to be teaching the kids. So as you can see, our brothers and sisters, the Mojaves, we all had the same songs that were shared. We had Eagle songs. This is what Krober is a big anthropologist that came through here. I hope to one day meet them on the other side and be like, just thank you for everything you say for us. Even Spear, he interviewed one of my relatives to be able to say, hey, these are all the songs when I came through that are here.
Good question.
You heard the creation story? Go ahead.
Actually, you might be getting to my question. I'm wondering why everything's centered around the bird.
Beautiful. So let's go into that. Why birds? Because I think it'll answer a lot of people's questions of why animals in general. What I want the audience to know is why are natives so close to animals? It's because they were the first. When somebody is first, they're your elder. So that's why you have respect for them because it was their home before us.
Right.
And we're going to go into that. So Leslie Spear in 1920, he spent 12 days with my people. And he did a really good job. It was from July, August in 1920. So his informant at the time was Jim McCarty. And Jim McCarty was he knew all the knowledge during that time. And what's wild is his grandson ended up being a head singer, Bird, and I actually learned from him. So it was pretty cool to hear this story after I had learned songs from him, from his grandson. So this is what he says, which follows in our creation story as told by Jim McCarty to Leslie Spear in 1920. It is the creation story I was told, but there are many versions of it. So that's also I want you to know. There's always going to be many versions of it. It's just about how good is your dream. You might be gifted to see it, but you got to have that heart. If you don't have that heart, you'll never learn these songs. The foundation of the story is about the first humans were birds and animals. These hills were always high, but in those days there was salt water on both the west and east side. As a man emerged from the sea and opened his eyes so that he could see the sun, then another man undoubtedly emerged, but he could not see the sun, for he was blind. There were two foxes, a silver fox and a common fox, which belonged to these men. The blind man felt about for his property, the silver fox, but failed to locate it. Instead, he felt the common fox. He asked the other, "Is this my fox?" To which the latter replied, he said, "Yes, that is yours." And the blind man knew that the one he felt was not his own. So he made many animals, the coyote, the long-legged birds. He also made the moon. He showed the other man their reflection in the moon. But the appearance was fleeting. After the latter had gazed at this, he turned to look for the blind man, but he failed to see him, for the ground had opened and swallowed him. The other then went to the sky. Now we hear the blind man down below. He causes the earthquakes. If I were to roll over quickly, the earth would turn over, but he rolls only a little, which causes tremors. The man above wondered where he was going to make humans. He reached into the earth. He placed the blind man, had descended to feel for something. He pulled out some red clay, which he had made man, and then second, near midnight, he looked down to where they lay by a little fire he had provided. One still retained its shape, the other had fallen to pieces, so he made them over several times. The fire was still burning, and the man above, I hear some talking. There are some alive down there, the clayman answered. So what gets interesting is now that I've told you I made you, I will name you. I'll name you Ipai, and I'll name you Sin, which is man and woman. Then he said, I wonder what I will do with these two people. When the people left there was sea in all the country. The bed bugs were driven into the sea, so that it has been dry ever since. And the men went about with wildcat to instruct the men. So this was interesting. So when the creator passed, for some reason he left everything to the wildcat. And in our creation story, the wildcat cut his tail when the creator died. So that's why us natives cut our hair to honor anyone who passes in mourning. So we learned that from the wildcat, and that's why today the wildcat doesn't have a tail. It's got like a little stub.
Ah,
The latter then told him how to count the months. So at this point, the creator, is sick. He's going to pass. And the reason he's going to pass is because when he made the frog was in the shape as a human. And so the other four-legged would tease the frog. So she had this thought like, oh, Dad, why would you make me like this? And it was that thought that got him sick. So my teachers would always say, we're the most powerful beings in this world. Be careful with your thoughts. You can create anything.
right.
So Wildcat instructed the later, this is how the months, so as the creator would go to different places, that's how the months were born. So we're on a 6-month calendar that counts as a whole year. And this is where he ends up getting sick. So he ends up going, one of the claymen, the Kumeyaay, was far in the east, but the big birds, the crane, the goose, the meadowlark, flew about saying that he was not sick. The time he fell sick was at they call it Nachupak, which is the month of Lakwal. He died in the month. He was nearly dead when they brought him from here. They first took him to Matanpai, far north of here. Then they took him to Nyahar, the sun's entrance, by Enyahap, in the month of Lapsu. Then in Matapanyet, in the month of Lapnya. He was nearly dead. When they transported him from there, they took him home again, and he died. He died at Awikame. And this is your question. Why birds? The aforementioned birds gathered wood for the pyre, which was completed when he died. He called in all the big blue flies. Then a big fire started, and when they saw it, they sent Coyote to investigate. Coyote returned, reporting that it was false and that there was no fire. There was another fire nearby in the direction of Inyahap. Again, they told Coyote to see if there was a fire. Again, Coyote returned, saying that it was false. And another fire started far east at Nyatchupak. Again, they told Coyote to investigate. While he was absent, the big blue flies set fire to the pyre with their fire drills. Badger stood on the east side of the fire, Wildcat on the west. By the time Coyote returned, the entire body except the heart had been consumed. As he came along, he called to them to take his father's brother out of the fire, Nawi. Then he ran and snatched the heart from the fire and ran towards the east with it. Bullet Hawk, who has been watching, pursued him. Although he struck him several times, he could not make him drop it. Coyote ran on and on to Wiowi in the east, and until he grew so hot and tired, he lay down, having decided to eat it. Then he took it up again and went to a cave called Wixlau. And you'll see this mountain called Greased Rock, like it's greasy in Arizona. I don't know why. Then he carried it farther east to the edge, but they say because of the heart, edge of the sea, where he laid it down gently to no trace of blood should show on the ground. He started to eat it slowly and carefully. There was just a tiny drop of blood at the center, which, falling into the water, was transformed into many birds of certain variety having red wings, red bodies. When we lost the great man with all his knowledge, hence we know so few of arts of life. Wild took charge. So it goes on and on to really say, what took place. This is the biggest piece. As the snake, they went to Wikimi where they decided to burn so he could start the mourning ceremony. So the creator died, so there was no way to mourn at this time. They gathered the wood, building a big mountain east of Chimney Peak and west of Parker Reservation, probably the sacred mountain of Mojave is meant. Then they sent the crane to summon Mayahewiwit, the mythical snake. And you heard that story, what I shared with Dale, right? So,
Mm.
25 years later, I didn't know I'd find this story. When
Wow.
Mayahawi arrived, he coiled in his length around the interior of the enclosure. He commenced in the afternoon and stopped at sundown. And he told them to make it bigger by midnight. Um, and this is what I shared with you, but each tribe got a song, Child Tai, Tatsil, Chuman, um, and each tribe that got it. The peoples who acquired the song were the Quaha, Quechan, Tumal, Lacharp, Neki, Kauia, Waipuk, Lemar. Um, and it's the same. What's wild, 25 years, that's the same story that Dale told me, right? So like
Wow.
you get those cool confirmations.
Yeah.
And in my clan, this is where I had goosebumps because this was always shared with us. As told by Leslie Spear and James McCarty, a well-respected elder during his time, I had the pleasure in this lifetime to learn from his grandson, Leslie Spear. And he stated the following of my clan. When the two creators formed people, they made Wildcat. The people started migrating from Wikime. Their tracks are still in the rocks there. At the time, the sea reached the foot of the mountains. The creators told Wildcat that he knew everything concerning people and that he should therefore take care of them. He first made a big morning ceremony at Wikime and then led the people westward to this country. Here they scattered as the several gents, and as they traveled, he named the bushes. Among the people was the white book. They were called Lakwis. The people of this clan were tired of traveling by the time they reached Mukat. And what's wild is, you mentioned the wild animal park, but that wild animal park, that um, parking lot is where my village was.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool,
That's
Um,
interesting. Who would have
yeah, so
thought, you
so
know?
we call it a Mukat, but in here they call it Mukat.
Hmm.
So they went south to Hatabil. Here, all the white puks perished, saved a few for when they came here. All the others followed the wildcat, circling north and westward to the salt water. Then, when they found their progress blocked, they returned eastward and have lived there ever since. This is a list of the clans, but they're incomplete. Wildcat told them that there were many people. He said the country was too poor for all the people to live together, and people will pass. Wildcat said, I told these people that some would have to pass each year in order to leave room for the others. So Wildcat was like a huge reason why we have what we have because he taught us, we all of a sudden we could speak and we didn't know what the hell we were saying,
Right.
we had ceremonies, we didn't know what to do. And Wildcat did not want the world to go to humans. He didn't believe they knew how to be. They believe like the gifts that the creator was given to them that they would take care of. And we can kind of see that, right? Songs, they're holding on to them, they're mine, gives me power.
Right.
I'm somebody. You're not making it easy. So I think their lessons from then are still happening today of how to be kind, how to be helpful, how to be supportive. But you're not going to be able to do that with English. You have to know your language and you have to know your song so that, that's your DNA. You
Right.
got to open that door and lock, you've got to know your language so you can see it from that cultural perspective. And that's our creation story.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Very
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're interested in ever reading it, look it up yourself. It's Leslie Spear, 1920. What you also see on my screen is the song cycles. You'll see from Mojave, Yuma, Maricopa, Cocopa, Kamya, Digueño, Yavapai, Chemehuevi, Serrano, and Kauai. We shared all the songs together. We're family. These are just notes if you're interested in the handbook of Indians of California, what they say about them. So we get to the website. When you go to theyumans.com, our core message is it's important our people learn from their people and community. Our goal is to create an inclusive and diverse learning program online. Thehumans.com, we plan on creating content from our perspective, giving permission for everyone to have access to it. Facts, if we pass on today, we will have created an environment where anyone can bring back our ways. So things that bugged me as I was growing up was, oh, you're singing it wrong, you're singing it right. It's about, you know, I never understood it. We're all right, So here's an example, my teacher, Lorraine Davis, Dale Phillips, Charles Evanston, even myself. It does not matter what version is correct. Let's break down the song. All are same. So
Right.
The very
Right.
first song is Enaya kamawele, awele kameyo. So as you can see, in Yaz in the song means sun, Kam
Mhm.
means to go, root word is to leave. And when a K is added in my language to an A, it becomes Ka. And when the M is added to Ka, it becomes Kam. You are being told this. It's now a command.
Mhm.
We, Nyam, it is said on this. It was said on this. I'm standing on the hill and I'm saying it was said on this. Lay, term used when birds begin to sing. All singers have this piece. Difference is our tu versus a we. So if I said Inaya kamawele tu, so tu means center versus if I said Inaya kamawele a we means on this is what he said on this rock. So
Oh,
don't argue about what's right. If you understand your language, you know what they're both saying. Just like as I shared when counting, a hin
right.
versus a hink, another versus to be alone. But you still understand it means one, you know?
Wow. Exactly. And I think that is interesting when some people are like, oh, it's supposed to be this way or that way. Obviously
You'd
there's
be surprised, Rachel. People will spend 5% on what's wrong versus 95% on what's right,
so true. So
you
true. They're
know?
right finders and they're very passionate about it because they're like, this is our language. If you get it wrong, it's going to pass down to the generations in a wrong way. And yet, if you
Yeah.
think about it, think about even the dialects across America. You've got your Louisiana Southerners, you've got
Hmm.
Northeasterners, the Pacific Northwest. I mean, there's totally different dialects, and with that much spreading out of people over the years, it's going to happen anyway. So I think people should, like you're kind of saying here, maybe stop arguing and start looking at the meaning of the songs and why we sing them, which is so much more important than, I mean, obviously you want to get it right, that's very important, but there can
Yeah,
be
no, exactly.
various.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my fear though. Imagine if it's the wrong person that's telling the
Right.
story, you know,
Right.
and it's being referenced. But I what I love though, like if you look at what happened in Africa, like there was like I want to say like 40 different tribes that were trying to bring back the language, but they all agreed like this was going to be the phonetic English way to do it, you know. So where my tribes are at right now is they're fighting on which which version of the dictionary is right
Right.
versus, hey, let's just all agree that we're all going to use this and let's all bring it back. So rather than wait for that kind of change, because I feel that's like a generational change, me and my brothers just did it and built it and
Yeah.
said, hey, this is how you sing it. This is how you say it. I don't care
Yeah.
what dictionary you use. It's all going to add up to the same thing, you know?
And well, and you were taught by the elders, so it's
Yes.
not like you're going around the whole process. Speaking of the
Not
elders,
only
and
that,
then
I was taught by their teachers' teachers
wow,
because,
right.
like, remember, I didn't have access to Lorraine Davis, right? I
Yeah.
got to hear about her when I was a kid, you know, but
Right.
through Dale, I got to know her and how she sings it, but I didn't get access to that until they both passed. So
Yeah.
I'm listening to
Exactly.
them while they're in the spirit world, you know.
Right.
But I get to see how she sings it, and I get to see how the Mojave sing it, and my friends who are other singers that sing it, they share their version. But that's my goal. My goal is how can I save every singer's voice today? Because even
Right.
though I'm here in San Pasqual, I want to know how the Mojave sing it because I want to save their melodies because they
Yeah.
sing it a little bit different, but just as beautiful. But I want a Mojave kid to know it 1,000 years from now. If
Oh,
they're in
that's such a
Baja, I just want
yeah.
this point of view. So, and that's why I chose the humans so they don't forget that we all came from that mountain that you heard in our story.
Hmm.
You know?
Because preservation can also have its challenges, believe it or not. You and I both know that. When you came to say your tribe or your elders and said, "Hey, I want to start preserving our songs," was there any pushback in there?
Oh, absolutely. Um, a pushback from my own family.
Mm,
They truly believe that death was going to be brought to us, and I just I don't believe the creator would have put something here to hurt us. I
yeah.
don't. I
Yeah.
believe human, I believe man and woman bring that poison to this world,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
And if the
Not these
creator
songs.
created these songs and the dreamer, because all of our songs were dreamt, they dreamt these songs, these melodies, these stories.
Hmm.
And if the creator gave it to the very first singer, you really think the conversation was don't share it? You know, when
Right.
the creator talked to Buddha, don't share it. When the creator talked to Jesus, don't share it. You know, can you
Right.
imagine trying to own the Bible and keep it away from people?
Right.
You know,
Good
I
point.
believe that this story has been happening since the beginning of time through different cultures. We have just never, um, I want to say, compared it to indigenous' point of view. Like
Right.
everyone knows Christianity, everyone knows Catholic, but those religions are young compared to other religions. How can you look at
Mhm.
all the religions and what does it teach about spirituality?
Yeah,
Because that's the key. The key is spirituality. How do you have a relationship with yourself and the creator?
for sure.
Hmm.
Well, I definitely want to, in a moment, I want to kind of share with the world what your website looks like, easy tips on what to look for
Yeah.
once you're in there and all that. So, but first, if you shared some songs here and there with us, would you
Hmm.
mind officially singing a song or two for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
Awesome.
the very first song, I would love to share is, you know, when you pass, the first thing that's gonna happen is the sun's gonna set and you're gonna miss that. So
Hmm.
that's the first song I'm gonna sing. So and it goes you always whenever you start the very first song, it's always slow, because you're just barely starting.
Okay.
So I'm gonna sing to you as if I'm teaching you and we're in my living room, as I, sing to my kids. So The second song, well, if the sun's gonna set, what has to happen? It has to, become noon. It has to go through that whole day. That's what I'm gonna say, the day, like in the afternoon. In the sun in Ya. In Ya, the night, it ways like I have to part ways with you. So sun is setting, taking you home. It's gonna become late in the afternoon, but I do have to part ways with you. Ang nay the nay yung away yo ang hinay the nay yo way yo hinay the nay yo way yo hinay the nay yo way ah hinay the nay yo away yo hinay the nay yo way yo hinay the nay yo way yo hinay the nay yo away. Mm, 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 mhm. So I say way, because we're in a setting of teaching. But if we were at a funeral, I would be saying a whim towards the land of the dead.
Hmm.
In the night, yo whim, in the night, yo. So those are the things that we teach. Like where you're at, be careful. What you're saying.
That's
So
beautiful.
sun is setting. You know, you're realizing, hey, this might be for you. You don't want it to set. So as it's setting, you're saying, no, I was alive yesterday, seconds ago. rewind it, why me? I want that sun to rise. So, why me, why me, why me, why me, Kunyang Juman, why me, Inyang Juman, why me, why me, why me, why me. Nyangajuwa, Nyangajuwa, Wayome, 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 Nyangajuwa. So what I'm saying, like Nyangajuwa, today in this house I made, like I want that sun to rise, but unfortunately it's setting. You can't go back. Okay, so um this will be the fourth song I share with you because, like, at this point, you know, I'm telling the spirit what's happening, and the spirit's realizing, like, oh, like this is gonna be about me, huh? And this is when the spirit, then you guys cry together because you're realizing that, like, you can't go back. So, right, in my language, we say, well, me, It's- he or she cry, she, oh, so that's what I'm gonna say. Mejayo Anganyaleya Jayo Mejayo Umejayo Honga Mejayo Mejayo Anganyaleya Jayo Mejayo Mejayo Nyanya po Anganyaleya Jayo Mejayo Nyanyagamo Ganyaleya Magajayo Jayo Mengajayo Homejayo Gamejayo Mengajayo Ahangaleya Magajayo Mejayo Mengajayo Nyanyagamo Ganyaleya Magajayo Mejayo Mengajayo Nyanya po Angele Magajayo me Jayo me Jayo. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah.
That was beautiful, but also it hits your heart.
Yeah, it does.
That
But
whole not
that's
not wanting to see the sun go away, reverse the time.
yeah.
Mm.
But and the wild part is, the spirit doesn't know till about like after 150 songs on the Matinyo Good song, remember I shared with you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's when they realize, like, I passed. And you're like, yeah, I'm taking you home. But all these songs I'm giving to you, so you know
Oh, I
where to
love
go.
that.
So you're gonna go to Orion, a moon, you're gonna live there for a whole year, and you're gonna sing these songs. And when you see the owl, that's that song. You see the coyote, that's that song. You're gonna know where to go to get home.
Oh my
And they're gonna live their
gosh.
life one whole year. And they say, like, that's why they say don't mention their names. And that's what I've learned. Like, my elders weren't saying taboo to hurt me. They're saying don't
Mm-hmm.
mention the name because if you love them, you want them to travel in peace. You want
Right.
them to go home. You want them to go home to who they miss and who they're now
Mm-hmm.
going to see. Though you would hold them back from that.
Right.
The Creator didn't hold them back from you. He Creator gave them to you. So don't disrupt that. No one deserves to disrupt that. Now, I wasn't told that way. It was like you do it, you die, like, with
Right.
time, like, and that's the difference of me and my brother's teachings. Like, we're teaching a different way, but at the same time, this is real.
Yeah, you're
Like,
teaching
this
the
is
why
not
behind it all because
yes,
it
the
it
respect of it.
is yeah, it means so much more when you understand it that way. It's
Hmm.
in a strange way sweet.
Yes, and there's songs I won't, share over video or only in person because of the understanding respect that I have for it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one needs to learn over video or online. What song do you sing when the baby passes and the spirit
Right.
is leaving the body for the very first time? Like, you don't need to know
Right.
the price of that. I know the price of it
Yeah.
because I learned at a young age, but As my teacher said, you shouldn't know that until, you're 70 or 80. Might no one should bury their children.
Right.
So you don't need to carry that with you in this life. Let us carry it. We'll sing that baby home. You
Hmm.
know, just because you want to learn that song because it sounds cool, like then you're not
Right.
here for the right reasons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's to each their own. Like we can't force that on anyone. They got to learn
Sure.
that life on their own. But you and I know life will teach you,
Yes, it
and you don't
will.
want life to teach you because the
Well,
price is high.
that's why it's important to listen to your elders.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Wow. Well, this is such it's very touching and interesting to know. This is all very new to me, this concept of the bird songs and the beautiful pieces that you have coming when someone is passing on and all that. But the good news is, like you said, you're willing to share it with the world. And so I know
Absolutely.
you have some slides about your website. Let's see that, so people know where to go and to check out.
Yeah. Let's see here.
And
I
thank you,
think.
by the way, for making this public for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Does that show up?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So when you go to thehumans.com, everything's free. We're not nothing's being charged. There's no subscription here. It's not an Amazon. It's hey, this medicine's here. Go learn it. So you do
Yeah.
have to sign up. That's the only thing we do ask. That'll allow us to know, how many people we're getting, and it allows us to have funding with grants and stuff. So, when you go there, you'll be able to see what is a bird song. It'll give you a preview via YouTube. Um, the content on YouTube is private. So once you do sign up, you'll have access to it and the lessons because we wanted to build lessons like an academic setting so that you could
Mhm.
learn the way you've been learning the last 50 years, but with
Yeah.
our cultural perspective infused in it. So once you create a username, email, you register, it'll take you to first lesson. So if you went to university or middle school or you had, some Chromebooks, COVID really changed the digital learning. You'll see the very first song. And on the left side, it'll say, hey, this is the very first song, the second song, third song. So we'll teach you the order as well, but the why behind it. Why are they singing about the sun going down? Why aren't they singing that at midnight? Well, because there's no sun at midnight, so it tells the story of how the day changes, and why is it talking about the owl at night and not the morning? Well, because the owl comes out at night. So like it will explain the why. The end goal, though, is to give you access to all 300 songs. So we're testing out the very first 10 songs to see how everyone receives it. If they learn it, they like this format, give feedback of how we should change it. So once you click the very first song, it'll tell you how many steps are, how many you've completed, to mark it complete. What you'll see is obviously me. I want to honor all my people, ipai kumeyaay tipai. So what you'll see, the very first picture is what I'm singing about. I sang that very first song for you. The words that are on there for the closed caption are in English phonetics. So if you know English, you can say it. So you might say, Inya kam awil le tu awid nam iu. So nayang ham awil le tu awi nam iu. So because when you push play, you hear me singing it. So you have the
Hmm.
how you a one version of how you sing it. I'll never say the correct way. Um, I won't know the correct way until I'm on the other side, and I don't want to know that price yet.
Right.
So, so then halfway through the song, as it's going over and over and you're learning, it'll go into what I'm saying in English.
Oh, that's so
The
neat.
sun is going on in the rocks from the center. It will be everywhere. Look, look.
Hmm.
Okay. So naya kamawengalito awi namiyo wayo naya kamawengalito awi namiyo wayo naya kamawen. And that's how the format is. So you'll also get the words, what each word means in ya, sun, come, being told to go, a will, rocks, lay, the birds begin to sing, do, center, look.
Love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems easy. Not easy, but at least digestible.
without a doubt, and that's my goal. Like, right, like I know the 300 plus people that I've sang for death, right?
Right.
Um, you don't need to know my price of why I know every song, right?
Yeah.
Cry of a mom who lost, her baby or her
Mhm.
20-year-old from DUI, or, someone killed their kid from drunk driving, or someone, who lost a baby, or, our aunt, uncle. So we did all that. We ate all that for you. We're filtering it, and you can
Yeah.
either learn that way or learn this way. I'm alive. You can call me. This is my email, my phone. If you ever have questions on how do I sing that song, but I just want to make it easier for you. Because the
Yeah.
truth of it is, I can't hold on to these songs anymore. It's not meant for one person. The people need to hold
Right.
on to it. And yeah, as my brother always says, like the reason the Dead Sea is dead is because water doesn't flow to it. So
Ah,
I can't hold on to these songs because my body can't hold on to pure lightning, pure creation. It
hmm
needs to be. It belongs to all of you, and I put it in the format that you understand it today, Sunny, um, so that I can move on. But I can't move
absolutely.
on until it's out there.
For sure. Well, and for those who are listening, Chris's email address, again, he's been so kind to share these songs with the world and also give access to him. Please do respect his time if you do reach out to him, but he is willing to share his email address, which is chris.alvarado@theyumans.com. That's
Hmm.
chris.alvarado at the Humans is spelled YUMANS.com. So
Absolutely.
definitely reach out if you have questions and go to his website. I'll post more information on my Native Chalk Talk Facebook page. I don't know how you have time to do all these things that you do. Listeners, Chris is the founder of the Humans and he runs digital marketing for the Marriott hotels. He teaches at San Diego State. He lectures for Native American studies. He helps kids that are interested in streaming. He helps with small businesses. Oh, and he's overseen casinos as well. So, is there anything you don't do, Chris?
No, I had some great mentors, and my 25 years, I got where I'm at, and now I'm able to run all the digital marketing for Marriott Vacations worldwide, and they allow me to do it remotely. So when the time I do have on the weekends, I concentrate on the projects that are important to me. Um, but this medicine belongs to the world, and that's my message. So you heard the songs and you felt them, you're now
Right.
part of them.
That's lovely. I love that. Well, earlier I mentioned a portion of the history of your people, and we left off where the U.S. had declared war on Mexico in 1846. So, according to the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians.org, forces under General Stephen Watts Kearny were sent across the desert to capture San Diego. He arrived with 100 men outside the village of San Pasqual in a driving rainstorm, hoping to eventually link up with the U.S. naval forces arriving in Southern California. Kearny found and attacked a similarly sized California force under Andres Pico. Chief Panto's daughter, Felicita, recalled that early one rainy morning, we saw soldiers that were not Mexicans come riding down the mountainside. They looked like ghosts coming through the mist, and then the fighting began. Witnessing the engagement, the San Pasqual Indians fled in fear to the mountains on the north side of the valley from where they looked down and watched the battle. All day long they fought. We saw some Americans killed and knew they were in a bad way. The San Pasqual Indians' estimation was correct, for the Americans were in a bad way. Tired after their long trek through the desert, many mounted on mules and unable to use their rain soaked gunpowder, Kearny's men were no match against Californios mounted on French horses and armed with long lances. 16 Americans were killed and 22 wounded. The San Pasqual Indians actually came to the aid of the U.S. Some say it was out of compassion, others say it may have been because they saw the writing on the wall and knew the U.S. would most likely ultimately take over. After Kearny's men united with U.S. naval forces at San Diego, Ponto lent the Americans desperately needed horses and oxen to pull artillery and supplies in their drive to capture Los Angeles, which was achieved in January 1847. And from then on, the U.S. started negotiating with the tribe over land and more. Last time we spoke, you had mentioned General Mesa and also the last chief of your people, Sinyondoro. I apologize if that's
Yeah,
wrong.
Sinanduro.
Okay. And I know you have some info that was documented and is in unpublished notes.
hmm
So feel free to fill us in.
Yeah, New York, Constance Dubois, she was amazing. I can't imagine being, she was a woman, and during that time in 1850, there wasn't a lot of, women rights, not to the 30s. And she came
Hmm.
out here, her own funding, and
Wow,
documented
really?
and stayed with us for like, 10, 15 years. And she became very close with Sinanduro. And during this battle, uh, you know, it's told through the, obviously the historic and American way, but Felicita, um, Ponto's daughter, actually wrote a book. You can find it. I think it's still available. Um, and what she wrote was, completely different than what you just shared. She wrote that there was a battle in the Temecula area, and Kearney had just lost a lot of battles, like from Yuma all the way to here. But he was told that he needed to come down here towards the San Diego area at the time to fight the Mexico War. He didn't have the resources. So, during the desert, he came here. Um, you mentioned something earlier. One of our tribe was very successful because we, half of us were baptized, half of us weren't. So we bought into, this is the only way we're going to survive. If we don't become vaqueros or, blacksmith and learn what is being taught to us, like how are we going to survive in the future? So, unfortunately, we were slaves and, the San Diego mission, we built that mission. They took our people there and we built the San Luis Rey mission. And because we did all that forcefully, right, they gave us back our valley. And that's why we were able to have our land. So when Kearney came through and he saw this, obviously the tribes to the north and the Mexican army were like, listen, we're not going to start a war with the Kumeyaay because if you attack one, they all come. And the reason why is because our daughters married the village outside the village, right? You couldn't marry your own
Oh,
clad, so
yeah.
it tied everything.
Right.
So it was this woven basket that if you attack them, because if you look at our land, we didn't have moats, we didn't have borders. They just knew like that was Kumeyaay territory. Do not go there.
Right.
But they had respect for our chief, um, Ponto, and so Kearney. They're going to start the war. They were actually going to march, and Ponto rode out there and says, "You're not going to fight today. You're all, you guys are going to rest. And, you're not going to do this here." So Kearney, he stayed there, and his daughter says that they stayed there, and it was my father that stopped the war from happening that day. Um, and Kearney was able to rest in his soldiers. But what's wild is in there, she says that she fell in love with one of the soldiers, and she ends up getting pregnant from one of the soldiers. And
Oh, really?
during over, and these are in his books too, like he wrote in his own journal, the soldier did.
Yeah.
So we have a bloodline that's out there that's half American, that's from our chief's line that because they end up taking the baby because they all agree like it would not do good during these times.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so there's a family out there to this day that belongs to our people, that comes from that American soldier. She only mentions the first name.
Oh
But
my gosh. This is
yeah,
such a mystery.
yeah, it is. It really is. But what's cool is she starts describing like, what happened in the war and the death. But Kearney went to our chief and says, listen, if you fight with us, we will keep your land. We'll give you your land. So you'll see it's like the Treaty of San Isabel. They promised all this land if we fought for them. So we had to fight our own people like Luceños and
Right.
um the Hispanic, and we won America. We won California for America. And to this day we never get that credit.
Right.
Because Kearney and his soldiers, they were sick. They didn't have enough soldiers to fight. They had just came from a big battle in Yuma. And in his journey, he writes that. He says that, and he was
Right.
brokenhearted that they didn't honor the treaty with us because if they did, literally like 3/4 of San Diego would be ours to this day. Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
he got all the tribes together and our chiefs, and they signed it. And the reason why a lot of things didn't get done is because at this point the American was starting to give us our American government. So it was no longer who had the heart of the people, it was who was now political, who was killing on their behalf. They were
Okay.
becoming the captains of the world. It wasn't the medicine man and the young men and women who were going through the old way of learning to see you had a heart, that when there was enough food, you gave it to. When someone passed, you buried them. Those ways were now going away versus how can I be in power because I want what you want, you have,
Right. Right. Exactly.
So that's my message today's listeners is you get a chance to read that, Felicita Ponto Kearney, um, and she has a book out there. I'll send it to you so you can post what the name of it is. Um, but it's amazing, the story's there, but hopefully one day, we can get what was honored to us.
Yeah. And do you think anyone has ever come forward saying we think that we're the descendants of these two people?
No, no, not yet. So I'm hoping this sparks something, that, there might be some
Absolutely.
mystery people out there, but I do know the family name. I'll have to find out in the book. It's in the book, but you got to remember names change over the last 100 years. So,
Absolutely. Oh
but
my
but if
gosh.
you're out there dreaming, and you don't know why you're
Yes.
dreaming, and you're hearing bird songs, well, you might want to consider you belong to us.
That's right. Go find your people. They're here.
Yeah,
So true. I mean, it just makes you wonder how much of that is out there today and descendants of some really interesting, um, even heroic people that you may not even know you're related to. And it's
hmm
always nice when you can find those things out so you can honor those people that came before you. So
yeah,
just to kind of clarify in my mind today, where are the Kumeyaay people today? I know they're mostly in California, right? Are they
yeah.
also down into Mexico?
Yeah, absolutely. Our people are still in Baja, half of Baja.
Wow.
So if you go from like Oceanside south all the way to Baja, and then half of Arizona into Mexico, um, you'll see our people. Those are the people that speak all the same language. And to this day, when we have our gatherings, our people from Baja come up here and they sing. So it's really cool to hear the same songs that we sing. You have to know Spanish because obviously that's the native language there. So they speak Spanish in Kumeyaay and we speak English in Kumeyaay. Um,
Right.
so it's really cool to see that it's happening. So that's another goal of ours is, we have federal recognition, just with our tribes, there's $500 million net EBITDA, but
Mm,
how do we help our tribes down there?
right.
Right now tribes are per capita is getting higher, so they
Oh,
want to keep the per cap for themselves rather than
right.
for the community. So those are the things that we're facing now is greed.
And you're on the per cap system.
Yeah,
Um,
yep. Well, I would say tribal gaming system.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, where the goal is, the elders now it's like less Indians, more per cap for us. So enrollment's closed.
So they don't want that to grow. And I never thought
No.
about that. Like a
Yeah, no.
tribe that has some people in the US, but some people outside of the US, that the tribe only in the US only deals with US tribal citizens.
Only,
They
yeah,
don't.
that's correct. So that's
Yeah.
wild, right? So like when people
Yeah.
like Constance Wall was coming here in the 1890s to document, what natives were here and selling
Right.
baskets, they never thought, imagine 100 years later that people would be using that to say who's native and who's not. And then, blood quantum was created to eliminate you and I,
Yeah.
but remember I said leaders who are leading, they didn't come up through the cultural way, so they don't have the heart. They have the capitalistic way of how do I do what's right for me? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so they now using those documents to say who belongs, who doesn't belong. Oh, you're not enough Indian. Oh, you're Indian, but not from this tribe. We use total, we don't use total Indian blood. So my goal is hopefully I leave this world where blood quantum is eliminated. If
Yeah.
you have any ounce of us, you have a right to us. Um,
Agreed. To
and I
be
hope to
part of
see
the
that.
family. It's really hard. I mean, there are people that are definitely higher blood quantum than I am in my tribe, that are not tribal citizens, and it's sad, and it doesn't make them any less native. Of course, they are who they
No,
are,
it
but
doesn't. But it's just a generational change, you know?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
in this world, people thought it was okay to own people until the Constitution said it didn't, or the religion, right?
mm-hmm.
It was okay to segregate until it wasn't, until, people stood up. So, um,
Right, right.
the oppressed become the oppressors become the oppressed, right?
Mm.
Never did our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors think when we were being raped, pillaged, and murdered and burned off our land that it would be our own people hurting each other for
Exactly.
money. But that was the goal, right? That's capitalism to its core. Now, I do believe capitalism is good with the right heart,
Yeah.
the right leader, and you'll see a lot of tribes that are flourishing, that do good, with their brand and their investment, and they are taking, instead of increasing their per cap, they're keeping it the same and investing in language, maybe
Mm-hmm.
teaming up with Rosetta Stone of how do we create a language.
Right.
But it's still not enough. When you have $500 million EBITDA in just my area with my people, you should be seeing your own middle schools, your own high schools, your own colleges. We got the college, but now it's like, how do we have our own hospitals? How do we have our
Yeah.
own fire departments for the whole nation? And then it has to go beyond the borders. How are we giving back to the community?
Right.
And there's a lot of tribes that are doing good with that, but we still
Yeah.
gotta. But blood quantum is always going to cause that to not come together. It was designed for that.
It's still causing problems today,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well,
And
hopefully with
there's
the new leader in the BIA, now that we have a native representing us, hopefully one day
yeah,
she attacks that.
yeah, absolutely. The sky's the limit right now.
Mhm.
This is the day for the native. And there's not that many tribal members in existence in your tribe today, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's for capitalistic reasons. The per cap is very high. So we
Yeah.
only have about 100 enrolled. They closed enrollment about, I want to say, maybe 10, 15 years ago, because they want to keep that money for themselves rather than, for the community. Um, but, with 100 being federally recognized, there's 4,000 of us on our reservation. And they
Oh,
know if they open
wow.
the rolls, that money goes away,
Yeah.
and you're really being native because you want to be, not for the per cap.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. So
Makes
that's
sense.
that's where my people are at. And the good news is, well, it's kind of good and sad that, like most of our elders, they're in their 70s and 80s, and you know, if they don't open those rolls, the tribe will die.
So I had a side note question. What is the traditional wear or regalia of your people?
Yeah, we were like, we had like eagle skirts. That was huge for us. We any feathers, and it goes around us. Um, I thought I had a picture. Let's see. Maybe I'll send you one later, but let me see if I can find it real fast. Yeah, here we go. This is a good one. Actually, I think it's on the humans. I think I have a picture of it.
Okay.
Yeah, one second. Yeah, here we go. Let me share. So you see this right here?
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna zoom in. So this is our traditional regalia. It
Love
was
it.
either, we had a skin covered and we have our feathers. And these
Feathers
are our
on the head.
ceremonial
Like,
feathers.
I don't know what that kind of headdress is called. Do you know?
No,
It's
no, it's just the way our style. So we have a band and the feathers come out around, and you become the birds, like in the
you
beginning.
become the birds. It's so
Yeah.
perfect. I
Hmm.
love it. Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yep. And
Interesting.
here's another picture regalia. You have to
Yeah.
type, Diegueno, Diegueno, because that's how we're classified. If you ever type in Ipai or Kumeyaay, nothing will come up.
Right.
Um,
I noticed that.
mhm.
Okay. Good to
Yep.
know. So, folks that are listening, don't forget to rush over to YouTube to be able to see some of these visuals that Chris has given us today. It's very fascinating. So, I'd love to hear about your ancestors. What stories and history do you know about them?
You know, I remember talking with my parents and I'd be like, what happened to us? Like, why are we not in the valley? And we ended up finding out that they actually surveyed the wrong land. We're supposed to be in the valley. So
No.
our reservation was recorded in the wrong area. And I asked, like, well, why, like, when you were growing up with great grandma speak, and like, yeah, but they didn't speak it because they didn't want us going to school not knowing English. They didn't want to teach us
Oh,
Spanish
man.
because, you know, they want us to know English, they want us to be successful. And the sad thing that we had happen was all our elders, like around 1900 when we were burned out of the valley, um, they were like 112, 120. And so
Oh,
their kids were in 60s or 70s. So that's why their kids never went to the mission schools because they were too old, right? So
right.
our kids, we back then they weren't even born yet, so they were already in their 30s. They knew the culture. So when they died around 1900, while this was all happening, they were already adults,
Hmm.
so they didn't go to the missions. But the problem with that is they didn't learn the language of the culture. So our line broke because of that. We got burnt out.
Yeah.
So our people had to learn from, the other tribes, the ways, and brought it back. And it's kind of funny how it's like coming full circle where we're trying to get back as well
Yeah.
with the clans. So I know our elders, like, they wouldn't let us come on here till like about 1970. They're the BIA, and there was a family that stayed here on this land, and didn't want anyone else to come here. So it took like 40 years for us to get here. So we really didn't come up to Valley Center until about 1970, and it's been flourishing ever since. And then when the casino was born, it brought more families to come back for those benefits. So now you have families that, had that did it for the right reasons, went to LA to learn to survive. And then you have those that have been here since day one. And then you have those that don't know any culture or customs or traditions. So it's been a good melting pot, but hopefully, over time, we can find that balance. But unfortunately, when anytime there's greed, it'll win because people are not they don't know the language. They don't know how to think, you know,
Right.
about others versus themselves because English doesn't teach you that.
Right.
And that's what our elders would always say, know your language and you'll know what to do in this world.
Love that. Wise words of wisdom.
Not mine, the elders.
Thank you, elders. So I'm sure you're proud of your people and the many obstacles they've overcome to be where they are today. And you're one of only a few remaining from your tribe, and you're doing them proud by preserving the songs and culture. So before we go, though, are there any Native causes or businesses you'd like to promote?
Yeah, yours.
Ah,
I think your native podcast is doing amazing work. I think, the connections you're making with different tribes, I would love to see where one day my kids look up my name and see this 1,000 years, and I
right.
think that's beautiful work. You're having conversations with those in the past, and that's what I would say to them is that just, we're proud of you guys, and the work you're doing, and those to come and your future generations, they should be proud of the work you're doing. And the reason we're doing this and we're going against the grain and being judged and not supported, and all of a sudden it's everyone's idea, right? Oh, this is a good
Right.
idea once they
Right.
see it.
Yeah.
Um, reason why we're going against that grain is because we want you to know how much you're loved. We want you to know that your elders wanted this for you. They never would have spoke to a stranger in 1800. They never would have documented in 1900. And as our chief said to Constable, write this word for word because those who are coming will know what I mean.
That is so well said. I want
Hmm.
to type those notes up and listen to that. I mean, that's so interesting to know that you are loved,
Hmm.
right? That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And finally, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just be first in your story, it was hell to put all this together, but it was rewarding because there was always going to be a third who hated it. There was always going to be a third who supported it. There was always going to be a third who was going to be neutral to it. So you might as well do what you want to do.
Very true. And we are cheering y'all on.
Thank
This
you. Appreciate it.
generation, the generations to come, all that are going to hear great things from you and the good work you're doing. And I know this has taken thousands of hours of your time. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. 30 years. 30
30
years.
years. Wow.
Hmm.
Life's mission, right?
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for the platform.
Yeah, Cookie.
Yeah, hon.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search for Native Chalk Talk. That's Native, CHOCTALK. And check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.